Did you know there's a story in the Bible that tells the downfall of one of the greatest cities of the ancient world? A city that seemed untouchable, indestructible. We're talking about Nineveh, capital of the Assyrian Empire, and how the prophecy of a lesser-known prophet named Nahum revealed its destruction with such terrifying accuracy that the city vanished from history for centuries. The Assyrian Empire was feared across nations for its brutal military power. But as we're about to see, even the greatest empires fall when they stand against divine justice. And it was Nahum, whose name ironically means comfort, who brought a message not of hope, but of total devastation. Today, we're going to explore what led Nahum to declare the fall of this mighty city and what this ancient prophecy still has to teach us. At its height, Nineveh was one of the most magnificent cities in the ancient world, located on the banks of the Tigris River in what is now modern-day Iraq. It was the beating heart of the Assyrian Empire, an empire known for its unmatched military strength and immense wealth. Its massive walls stretched for miles and towered up to 100 feet high in places, surrounded by deep moats. The Assyrians believed their city was unshakable, but what they didn't know was that a prophecy had already been spoken. Nahum had been chosen by God to deliver a vision of Nineveh's destruction, one filled with vivid, almost cinematic detail. But who was this prophet? Why was he called to deliver such a terrifying message? Nahum was a prophet from the Old Testament, but unlike others like Isaiah or Jeremiah, who often spoke of restoration and hope, Nahum's message was one of doom. He doesn't show up much in scripture, but his short book delivers a powerful blow. His name, Nahum, means comfort or compassion, but the message he carried was anything but comforting. His role was to declare the downfall of Nineveh, the greatest and most feared city of his time. Interestingly, years before Nahum, the prophet Jonah had also been sent to Nineveh, and back then, the people actually repented. They were spared. But that moment of humility didn't last. The Assyrians returned to their cruelty and pride. By the time Nahum entered the picture, their second chance was long gone. Judgment was coming, and it would be final. Nahum's book is only 3 chapters long, but it delivers one of the most detailed prophecies of destruction in the Bible. He opens with a bold declaration: God is slow to anger, but he is powerful and will not leave the guilty unpunished. Nineveh's fate was sealed. In chapter 1, Nahum paints a picture of overwhelming destruction. He describes a great flood breaking down the walls of the city and an invading army storming in. In Nahum 1:8, he writes, "With an overwhelming flood, he will make an end of Nineveh." This is not metaphor, it actually happened. When Nineveh was attacked years later, the Tigris River overflowed and collapsed a section of the city's massive walls, just as Nahum had foretold. That flood opened the way for enemy forces to enter. Even with all their power, the Assyrians couldn't stand against God's judgment. In chapter 2, Nahum continues to describe the coming chaos in haunting detail. He speaks of chariots racing through the streets, of soldiers clashing violently, of fire consuming the city. His words are so vivid, it's as if he's watching it unfold live. Nahum 2:4 says, "The chariots storm through the streets, rushing back and forth through the squares. They look like flaming torches. They dart about like lightning." And history confirms it. Babylonian, Median, and Scythian forces formed an alliance and launched a brutal invasion. They swept through Nineveh, looting, burning, and destroying everything in their path. Nahum wasn't exaggerating. His prophecy described the very reality that would soon come to pass. Then comes chapter 3, the final blow. Nahum declares that Nineveh's treasures will be looted and its leaders brought low. He makes it clear this once glorious city, filled with wealth and arrogance, will fall into total ruin. Nahum 3:5 quotes God saying, "I am against you, declares the Lord Almighty. I will lift your skirts over your face. I will show the nations your nakedness." This is intense, raw judgment. There would be no hiding from the disgrace. The Assyrian, war machine that once terrified the world, would be humiliated, broken, and gone forever. Their reputation, their pride, their very name would be buried in the dust. And that's exactly what happened in 612 BC. A coalition of Babylonian, Median, and Scythian forces laid siege to Nineveh. During the attack, the Tigris River flooded, weakening the city's defenses, just as Nahum had predicted. Enemy troops broke through, ravaging the city from within. King Ashurbanipal, who had once ruled with fear and might, died, and Nineveh completely destroyed. The Assyrian Empire crumbled. For centuries, no one even knew where Nineveh had been. It wasn't until the 1800s that archaeologists uncovered its remains. Just like the prophecy said, the city disappeared from history. So what does this ancient prophecy mean for us today? First, Nahum's message is a powerful reminder. No nation, no empire is beyond the reach of God's justice. The Assyrians believed they were invincible, but their power meant nothing when judgment came. In our time, we see systems of power, nations and leaders rise with arrogance, believing they are untouchable. But Nineveh teaches us that divine justice always has the final word. No wall is high enough. No army is strong enough. When God says it's over, it's over. Second, the story of Nineveh reminds us not to ignore divine warnings. The people had a chance. Jonah had already warned them, and they repented for a while. But when they returned to evil, they sealed their fate. Nahum shows us that God is patient, but he's not indifferent. He gives warnings. He allows second chances. But eventually his justice arrives. This is a call to examine our lives, our societies, and our choices. Are we repeating Nineveh's mistakes? Are we listening when God speaks, or only when it's convenient? Finally, this story shows us that when God makes a promise, he fulfills it. Nahum wasn't a famous prophet. He wasn't celebrated or widely quoted, but his words were precise, powerful, and fulfilled with chilling accuracy. His prophecy didn't just speak to a moment in history, it speaks to the nature of God himself. A God who sees all, who judges justly, and who keeps his word. Nahum's name meant comfort, and that comfort wasn't for Nineveh. It was for the oppressed, the broken, the ones who wondered if justice would ever come. And it did. The fall of Nineveh is more than an ancient tale. It's a prophetic warning and a promise. It warns the arrogant. No one is beyond judgment, but it also comforts the faithful. Justice is coming for those who suffer under the weight of cruelty, corruption, and pride. The story of Nineveh reminds us God is not silent. His justice may take time, but it is sure. And in that truth we find both warning and hope.